Hey, all my friends, John Felt here. This is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing for September 20th, 2024. October's just around the corner. This week, I think we're going to be keeping our eye on the Gulf of Mexico with the possibility of tropical cyclone development as we go through the week. I'll be talking about that and more in this week's briefing. Now, speaking about tropical moisture, I always find it interesting that sometimes very significant rain, in this case 20 inches, and very significant flooding can occur with just plumes of tropical moisture feeding inland. This was a system about a week ago that brought this very heavy rain into the Carolina coast, over 15 inches of rain, maybe even 20 inches of rain right along the coastline, and red is moderate flooding and purple's major. So it goes to show that that tropical moisture out in that very warm Atlantic or Gulf, once that pushes in, we can get a lot of rain, whether it's a named storm or not. So fall is beginning. We had the meteorological and now the astrological start of fall, and colors are changing. It's still pretty much low color with the exception of the higher elevation of the Rockies and up in New England. You can see Colorado, some of the higher elevations are showing very high color at this time. Now, as far as the weather forecast, we have a front over the central part of the nation right now, and that's where some rain is being focused. You can see the boundary here between some really warmer air and some cooler air. We actually have some frost warnings over the upper Midwest or northern Rockies. Last week, we didn't have a lot of rain. I talked about the rain with that tropical moisture plume. This was from Francine that occurred earlier. But really, Montana was the area that got the most rain with 2 to 4 inches of rain east of the Rockies. Everywhere else, pretty scattered rain over the central part of the U.S. But it was a hot week over the central U.S. Look at Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin, and surrounding states. We averaged 10 to 15 degrees above normal for a weekly average. On the other hand, Southern California averaged about 5 to 10 degrees cooler than normal. So a really warm week over the central part of the U.S. And temperatures nearing October made it into the 90s. Anywhere we had shades of yellow, those shades of orange, 95. Parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and the desert Southwest made it at or above 100 degrees. So what we're looking at now is, I showed you that temperature gradient. This is a moisture gradient. Pretty abrupt here, isn't it? With dew points near 70 at St. Louis and in the 40s over central parts of Nebraska. So along that boundary is where we have some rain this weekend. But I don't think it's going to be enough to do a whole lot with our rivers. There could be some bumps. You can see these bumps here, and that's some local tributaries or smaller rivers bringing in some runoff. But overall, look at areas near or south of the confluence with the Ohio on the lower Mississippi and the middle Mississippi. That area in brown is showing that it's low flow. This is the far lower Ohio, and this is that reach just below that. Memphis, for example, very low flows. So we're reducing barge traffic when we get to those low flows. And with harvest in swing right now, that could slow that transportation of grains to the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, so right now what we have is we have this area of low pressure, and that's moving along that front, producing some rain this weekend in the central U.S. But what we're going to be watching is this area of low pressure here, and that's associated with the potential for some tropical development. Other than that, a big ridge of high pressure. Look at these dark shades here. This is saying that the ridge is much higher. Look at the amplification of this flow way up here. And you know, I've talked about that in a number of my posts in how that is causing us, mainly it used to be in winter months where we're getting highly amplified departures of temperature, but it's also has occurred this past summer. And it's still going into fall, which should be a lazy jet stream with not much energy in it. And this is a highly amplified jet stream. So what we have here as far as temperatures, under that upper low, we have some cooler weather here, and that's certainly a break for those areas that had some of the hottest temperatures last week. But after that, by the time we get into early October, it looks like most of the country just generally above normal temperatures. I don't see any strong, widespread pushes of cold air at this time. Okay, so let's get to the tropics. I think the story this week is watching this very disorganized system right now in the Western Caribbean, and that's going to drift into the Gulf of Mexico. High probability of development since the water is so warm. And what we have here, this is just one model. I wouldn't bet anything on it, but it does show the potential for development of a hurricane, or maybe I should even say the likelihood of a tropical cyclone, and perhaps a landfall in the northern Gulf later this week. But that's something that we have to just keep an eye on. It's way out there, and right now it hasn't even developed yet. So, but let's keep an eye on that, because that very well will likely be the big story this week, spreading heavy rain into the southeast U.S. There's the rain that we currently have with that upper system. Other than that, it looks like the southeast U.S. Everywhere else, a very broad area of dry conditions. Okay, let's look at week 2 here, 6 to 10 day in week 2. Like I said, just a broad area of above normal temperatures, and look how dry it is. Now, this does look like sort of a early fall with a very quiet pattern. This is our rain with the southeast with that potential tropical system. So other than that, we could be going into a pretty quiet pattern. And here's the extended outlook for October. In case you didn't see it, I put this out, I believe, on Thursday. You can take a look at it there for your area. So again, I'll be keeping my eye on the Gulf this week. I'll be issuing updates, letting you know what's going on. I think I'm overdue for an overall tropical update as well. Take care.